Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. It is Election Day, so get out, vote, enjoy. I will do that in a little while, but plenty to get into. Got our history lesson a little bit earlier with the line change. 25 years ago today, Nebraska, Missouri. And the miracle in Missouri. We have put out a voting choice that I screwed this up. I should have planned the votes to go through the night. But with our newer radio handle at HVarsity Radio for the show, in honor of Election Day, you had a chance to vote on who Nebraska's next coach will be. And a lot of you chimed in on that. We'll get there with some results. Dive into Mickey Joseph, his comments today. Husker basketball 1-0, better than the alternative a year ago, as the Big Red finds a way over Maine. We'll talk about that, more from Mickey. And loaded up today as we'll spend time with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic in about 20 minutes. And an hour from now, Matt Schick of ESPN, Sirius XM and ESPNU, and the Schick and Nick podcast will join us to talk some college football. And then Travis Vokolek, you always got to find your tight end, as he'll sit down with us right around 5:40. Numbers to get in can join us today at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Those are the numbers to dial up and call. Can watch us and interact on the StreamYard. Do so on ESPN Lincoln's Twitter and Facebook. Also, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Can follow me, Chris Schmidt, at Schmidt_radio, or find Elijah at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. You got out. You did your civic duty.
Yes. And
how was it? Were you intimidated?
Well, Election Day is one of my favorite days all around, not because of the civic duty, that's important too, but because it allows me to bring back a tradition that I've been doing for years now, ever since I turned 18. And I don't think I've missed a single election since I've turned 18. I do very much think of the civic duty as a very important part of this. It's huge. Get out there, vote. I can't emphasize that enough. Get your voice heard. But the tradition is that every single time I fill out my ballot, I look for an uncontested election or multiple, and I figure out which job I'd like the most, and then I write myself in and see what happens. You never know. So this year, county engineer, I wrote myself in for. So we'll see.
Pam Dingman's got you rocked.
Probably, but you never know. I'm really hoping. I think it'd be really cool to build some bridges and stuff. You know, I could build some cool bridges.
You are shamelessly saying, write me in. I'm a broadcasting major and graduate, but let me handle infrastructure and engineering.
Well, I like my chances. I think I could build some cool bridges. And there's probably a lot more to the job than just building bridges, but that was where my mind first went. So we'll see how I do. If I make it on TV tonight, we'll see how my campaign is done. But County Engineer Elijah Herbel, I think it's got a nice ring to it.
Building and maintaining. That's a nice theme for Nebraska football wherever they go beyond, right, for 2023. Mitchell emailed in yesterday, and appreciate you listening, Mitchell. He says, if Mickey keeps it close against Michigan, pulls out a win against Wisconsin and Iowa, does Nebraska and Nebraska, does that solidify Mickey? With that, if Mickey is the guy, what's the staff look like next year? Love the show. Mitchell, thanks for chiming in. That's a lot of questions, and the first step of that is keeping it close, and that was a theme today about being underdogged. Mickey was asked about it. Travis Vokolek was asked about it. Ethan Piper was asked about it. And listen, this team, this group, this core of 150 plus in the locker room, they've been underdogged a ton. Now, it's natural tendency to worry about morale if you're a Nebraska fan after the Minnesota game. Mickey sounded a little bit more down than in other post games, but he's very honest, and I think this team is resilient. That's one thing they've been. A lot of times, the last 5 seasons, no matter what's happened, and a lot has happened, they've always come back to work. They've always gave it their all, right? And that's important. Not every program, not every player does that. At some point, you reach a tipping point and you say, screw it. Totally normal. It's too bad, but that's where it's at. I don't think that's in this locker room yet, and I don't know that it gets in this locker room. Here's the reality. They could play their ass off on Saturday, and it isn't going to matter. They could play hard. They could tackle. They could, keep Corum in check, allegedly, similar to Brown and Mo, where he doesn't kill you. He gets what he gets, but he doesn't do what he did last year, okay, where he took over in the second half with a couple of big runs.
That combination of Corum and Haskins last year was just...
man, it was...
You had Blake Corum juking dudes out of his shoes, and then Haskins jumping over dudes, and that in the second half. But
to the tune of 2 bills on the ground.
But to your point, even though that they were doing that on the ground, Nebraska still, the defense played well enough to give the offense a chance. The offense had the ball back late in that game, and it came down to turnovers. You were able to pick off McNamara last season and set your offense up in a short field. I'm pretty sure up until that final fumble, you were winning the turnover battle. The defense gave their offense a chance to win the football game last year. They did enough.
Plays.
They did enough against the rushing attack, and that's kind of the same story for this season is, Blake Corum's the guy who's going to get his. He's very talented, top 5 running back in the country. He's going to get his. Can you do enough to at least give your offense a chance to win? And you got to also understand, if Casey Thompson isn't playing on Saturday, what you got to do is a hell of a lot more than what you have to do if he is playing.
Exactly. I mean, it's very grim, to say the least. I mean, that's just reality of Saturday. But there's a bigger picture here. How do you go out the rest of the season, and what type of effort? Michigan, listen, as good as they are, and we'll see where they come in the playoff rating, whether they nudge in front of Ohio State. Their schedule's not been as good, right? Common opponents, Penn State. Their non-conference kind of laughable. But Michigan can sleepwalk and then turn it on. For whatever reason, Rutgers likes to hang around for a half and push Michigan. Don't know if that's Schiano and Harbaugh, the NFL familiarity, or what. But Michigan's looked mortal at times. But now the task is this. You're in the driver's seat up until that showdown in November against Ohio State. And it is about style points right now. So Michigan didn't get penalized for being, they were down, weren't they? 17-14 at half to Rutgers? Yeah, they were down.
Maryland.
No, they were down last week, or they might have been just barely up. They were only up 17-14 at half against Rutgers last weekend out there in Piscataway. Nobody tuned into that one. And then they pour it on. And it's 52-17, the final.
Well, that's happened a couple times this year because they were tied with Indiana at half.
Yeah, and they ended up winning like 31-10.
If my memory serves me correctly, I think Maryland was up on them at halftime.
And it was 10-10 in the third quarter against Indiana, and then they just flip it, man.
Yes,
they are that good.
It's how that ground game, that offensive line, they put in work, they wear out your defense. I mean, that's been the story for Nebraska this year, and I think that's why people look at this Michigan matchup and you have some fear in your heart because what Michigan does really, really well is they lean on you throughout an entire game, and then those 2- and 3-yard runs start turning into 5- and 6-yard runs in the second half, and you look at it and you go, that's been happening in Nebraska this season against teams that aren't named Michigan. So whenever Michigan, a team that's their bread and butter, whenever they come to town and do that, how's that going to look? Well,
let's hear from Mickey a little bit. We'll give you a little Mickey now and a little Mickey later, and we'll also get some thoughts on Nebraska basketball. Mitch Sherman in 10 minutes. But the task at hand, we talked about the point spread, being an underdog, and Mickey very respectful of what Harbaugh's got going up in Ann Arbor.
The players came back on Sunday with good energy, just like I expect. It's a relentless group. I expect them to come back the way they did. They came back with good attitudes. We all know what's in front of us. Michigan's a really good football team. The top 5 in rush offense, and then top 5 in every category on defense. Okay, and we know what we're getting into. We know the task at hand, but it's an opportunity, and the ball's going to kick off on Saturday.
So it's a big mountain to climb. More from Mickey here, specifically on Michigan and what they do.
Well, they're a very talented football team. You see talent across the board. You see talent when they put their twos out there. It's a very talented 85 scholarship group. And I think they're probably the best team that we're going to face this year for us talent-wise. But they're well coached. Hurrdat does a really good job. They're well coached. They're a tough team. They do a lot in the run game. They do a lot on defense. And they got a high football IQ football team, and they're an older football team. So you're dealing with a really good, solid football team this week.
So Nebraska's underdogged by 28.5. We'll see if that line jumps a smidge with the news on Miles Farmer. Statement put out by Mickey Joseph. Miles suspended DUI over the weekend. We wish Miles the best, and good dude. Good dude, and we'll hear Mickey's comments on Farmer. Not a good decision. No one's perfect. Not condoning or saying it's all good to get behind the wheel, but he's not a guy that is that's a surprise. I guess is what I'm saying. With as vocal and as many guys that respect and still respect Farmer on the football team, and just all the off the field work that Farmer has done in his career at Nebraska, when it comes to Make-A-Wish and also the Brooke Beringer Citizenship Award. Farmer's a good dude that made a bad decision, but listen, he's a guy that helps your defense. He's an experienced guy in your defense, and his effort is always there. And when Nebraska's gone to backup situations at safety, even though you have Buford, Elijah, anytime they've tried to put somebody else in at safety, mix and match a little bit, there's been a bust. Maybe it'll be different later in the season, but at least early in the year it was a problem.
Well, maybe it'll be different if you have a guy back there that's taking reps with the ones all week long. Maybe they get some more experience. They're actually getting reps against what Michigan is going to be running, so you're not going to be surprised when you're back there. But at the end of the day, this is a big loss for Nebraska, not only because of what Miles Farmer brings on the field. 18 tackles last week, led the team. He had probably his best performance as a Husker last Saturday, and then makes a bad decision Saturday night. Now he's going to be out for Nebraska's toughest test of the season. And your mind goes to, well, what's Nebraska going to do now? Because especially with how well Michigan runs the football, how will they take care of a defensive front seven? It was going to be a big game for the safeties to come up into the hole, make tackles on Blake Corum, a hard guy to bring down, and Miles Farmer is probably your most reliable tackler in the secondary this season. So what does Nebraska do? It's big shoes to fill this week for whoever's going to be stepping up to take the role of Miles Farmer.
More on that 4-touchdown underdog.
Means they think they're 4 touchdowns better than you. That's what they're saying. But you still got to kick the football off. You still got to kick the ball off. We got to go out. We got to play at a top level. We got to, like you said, we got to play 60 minutes. But we're not going to back down. We're not going to back down. We're not going to say, oh, we're going to throw the towel in. These kids won't do that. These coaches won't do that. We're not going to do that.
So, good, all right? You expect that answer, but there's some conviction in the tone of the answer. His message to his team this week as they try and rebound and put their best foot forward against number 3 in the country.
We talked to him about having a lot of pride, about not being broken, and to continue to fight, and that we start something and we're going to finish it. And along the way, it's going to be some adversity, but we got to bow our neck and we got to play football. It's the only way you can approach it right now. But like I said, it's a good group of kids. They're not going to quit.
So we'll know a little bit more on Casey Thompson, his health, and Thursday will be D-Day, whether or not Casey even suits up. We don't know where he's at with his elbow.
No, we held Casey today, just trying to still be day by day with him, but we held him today, no reps today.
And what's that timetable? It's Thursday, and a little bit more here when it comes to the quarterback position. All right, if Casey can't go, do you have things at least figured out with number 2 and number 3? Smothers or Purdy or Smothers? Can you get better quarterback play? Can you get on the same page with your OC?
Well, who's making the throws? who's getting us in the correct run place. And, they're competing right now. And we'll look at each practice and say, okay, he performed really good this day. He performed really good this day. And on Thursday, we have to make a decision. So we'll just look at their reps.
Let's hear from Mickey on his discussion real quick if we have time with Whipple, because that's what everybody wants to know. Have you talked to Whipple? Has Whipple talked to you? Can you guys figure out a game plan that'll put your quarterback in the best position?
The kid's not calling the plays.
Right.
We are.
So is that a conversation you have with
Absolutely. We had that conversation.
How'd it go?
That's between me and Whipple.
Between me and Whipple. I can envision 100 different ways how that conversation, and one of them is good. Yep, got you, coach. We'll run the football, or try and run the football. More on the run game. Mitch Sherman's going to weigh in, get his thoughts on Saturday and the rest of the season, where Nebraska's at. We'll get you the poll numbers here from Hail Varsity Radio on who you want as head coach. 24 hours worth of voting. Hail Varsity continues. We are presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We'll spend time with Matt Schick here in a little less than an hour, or sit down with Travis Vokolek. Mitch Sherman joins us from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman. It's where you follow him on Twitter. Mitch, how we doing?
I am well today. Chris, how are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm just kind of thought bubbling right now how ugly Saturday can get, man.
It's not a productive way to spend your afternoon.
No, I know. I'm just like, this thing's not going to be a lot of fun for Nebraska fans. It's on that. It's the two brands you want on ABC in November at 2:30. Except one of them's trying to become themselves again at some point. We talked with Nick about this, and he brought it up. Mitch, where were you 25 years ago today?
On November 8th, 1997.
Mm-hmm.
Today, is this the 25-year anniversary of the Miracle in Missouri?
It is, my friend. Were you in the end zone, in the press box, or in a pub?
Well, a little bit of both. I was in the press box. I was a college student, but I was working for the Omaha World Herald through most of that season, really all of that season. And I was on assignment in Columbia, yes, got to go to that game, like all of them in 97. And when the pass went, well, really for the whole drive down the field, where Scott Frost just continued to make pass after pass. I remember, I believe it was Kenny Cheatham was big on that drive. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Shevin Wiggins and Matt Davison showed up in the end zone. And, yeah, I didn't have a great view of it from the sideline where I was. And I remember the Missouri students jumping the wall down to come on the field and thinking they were going to rush the field, and probably had some physical contact, some brushes up against some of those Missouri students trying to protect myself from getting knocked over. And they cleared the field and kicked the extra point. And I definitely remember having a better view of the two Missouri native Missourians or residents of Missouri, Grant Wistrom and Mike Rucker, who converged on Corby Jones in the backfield for the sack that clinched it in overtime. So yeah, that was all pretty wild. And I also recall that it was until I returned to the press box after the interviews. So when all through the interviews, and this maybe sheds some light on for fans who don't have a great understanding of how things always work for us. I didn't know who caught the ball until we got back to the press box like an hour after the game. And, somebody up there had a replay that we could see. But, memorable day for sure.
Mitch, let's get into Nebraska, where they're at, and Saturday with Mickey. And, he sounded upbeat, and a lot was talked about with the underdog role And this team's been underdogged a lot, but they're really, really underdogged because of how good Michigan is. This is similar to a vintage Penn State matchup or those Ohio State games, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But Mickey seems to be confident that they're going to go out and play the right way, which is what you'd expect, but easier said than done at this point in the season where you got to win out to go bowling.
Yeah, this is reminiscent of the 18 game in Ann Arbor, which was right at the very beginning of the Scott Frost era. And, this is right at the very end. It's his era in name only because, this is the program that he built before Nebraska moves on to its next permanent head coach. So you can kind of say that these games at Michigan were bookend. That was the third game of his time in Lincoln, and it was a beatdown. And then this will be the third from the end of the time that Nebraska plays with the teams that he put together. I think it's going to be kind of similar. And what was that? Was that like 56-10? I think.
It was right there.
Yeah, this has that kind of a feel to me. I just think Nebraska Nebraska kind of went up against like the junior heavyweights of the Big Ten here in the last 3 games, like just to kind of get them primed and nice and beat up for Michigan. And now here comes the heavyweight champ. I mean, this is Ohio State is still like the king of the Big Ten, but as far as the team that you don't want to play if you're beat up and beat down, that to me is this Michigan team that rests its they hang their hat on running the ball and stopping the run. This is like the definition of hard-nosed Big Ten football, and that's got to just be so much fun for fans of that program. This is what they thought they were getting at the beginning with Jim Harbaugh, and it's here now. Michigan may not win the national championship. It may not make the college football playoff again, but they play hard, physical football that I know people who are connected to that program and fans of that program can be really proud of.
Mitch, I think really Nebraska, I don't want to say their only hope, but this 28-point line, it feels a little inflated to me if Casey Thompson is in fact playing. I think Michigan's still a much better football team, and maybe I'll regret saying those words today when Saturday rolls around. But what's the feel you get with Casey? Is there any chance you think he could be a go on Saturday? It still sounds like he's dealing with some loss of feeling in his pinky, can't really grip a football. What's the feel you get with Casey, and do you think it matters?
Well, if he's not 100%, it doesn't matter. If you had 100% Casey Thompson in an offense that was in prime condition, like everybody, Anthony Grant, Trey Palmer, Travis Vokolek, all of these pieces, the offensive line, you had Teddy Prohaska and Newely, like everybody on the roster, if they were there, or even just say the guys who were available this season, so take Nuri out of it. Yeah, I mean, I'd look at Nebraska and I'd say, okay, they have an ability to score against anybody because there's enough athletes out there. But that's not the condition that Nebraska's in. I don't think Casey's going to play. I think that's already been determined. I mean, I think you could hear it in Mickey Joseph's delivery and his voice today that he's not going to put a guy out there that has been through what Casey has and has any kind of a heightened likelihood to get re-injured. I mean, football is a dangerous sport, and you always have the possibility of getting injured. But if you're playing with nerve damage in your arm and you don't have full feeling, and this team's 3-6, hey, what's the ups? I don't think this is not the game. I think that you bring him back. I fully do not in any way expect Casey Thompson to play. I think this is up to Logan Smothers with Chubba Purdy as his guy to bat as a reserve, and that's not based on anything that Joseph said today. I just think they're gonna give this thing a different look offensively than what we've seen the last 6 quarters with Chubba as the main guy.
How do you think the talk with Whip and Mickey went?
Well, at least they're talking. I do think they're talking. You know, I think these guys are pros at what they do, and you know, I probably sound like I'm repeating myself. I think I've probably said this the last 2 weeks, but that's good. You know, they'll get through it. I mean, are they seeing eye to eye on everything with the way that this offense is going to best function? No, I don't think so, and I think that's reflective in the way that things have gone the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I think Joseph, you know, he's going to get his point across, and at some point, you know, Whip doesn't have a choice necessarily but to do what the head coach wants to do, and they've gone about this for the last couple of games doing it the way that Whip determines. And a lot of times in the heat of the moment in a game, like when you have to make a decision about who's going to go in or who's going to play the second half after your starter unexpectedly goes down, or you know, whatever the situation was with how they substituted in the game last week. You know, those are harder things to make a change on what your plan was and how you practiced it all through the week. But I think going into this game, Mickey's going to make the call. He's the head coach, and, you know, while Whipple might make calls or does make a lot of the calls during the game, not just on the plays but on the playing order, I think this is one where, you know, where Joseph is going to assert his authority and make that decision about who the starting quarterback is, and I think they're going to give Logan a shot.
Mitch, the bigger picture here with Trev and Nebraska and the coaching search and Mickey's candidacy, you know, I think we all kind of circle post-Iowa for some sort of announcement. Do you have a new feel or idea with where things may be, or a gut on, you know, how the job's being received by potential candidates?
Well, not so much on how it's being received. That's just entirely speculation, and it's hard to read it. And I mean, we haven't talked to candidates who have had conversations with Trev about the job and heard real feedback on what he's been told. So that's all entirely speculative, and it's easy to get carried away in thinking, well, we haven't heard this or we have heard this, so this must be happening, and you can quickly get really far away from where the truth is without trying to do that. It's easy to get lost in the speculation. So I don't know how he's being received. Knowing Trev, you know, I think he comes off well in those conversations, and I think that any candidates or representatives for candidates are likely impressed with what he's had to say. That doesn't mean that they're ready to take the job, but, you know, we'll find out more about that later on after he's made a choice. I will say I have kind of a gut feel like if he's ready or if he's preparing to hire somebody who's not a sitting head coach, and, you know, we've heard speculation about Matt Rule, we've heard speculation about Bill O'Brien, about Gary Patterson. None of those guys are sitting head coaches right now. And if it's somebody like that, I could see it happening before Thanksgiving, because you want to give that guy as much time as he can possibly have. If you're ready to make a hire and you know who it's going to be, I don't know that there is 100%. It's not 100% necessary to wait until after Black Friday. Just go ahead and do it. And, you know, if you have to coach your last game with knowledge that it's not Mickey Joseph and it's somebody else coming in from the outside, that's okay. I mean, Mickey's still going to coach the team. These guys are still going to coach the team against Iowa. It's tougher to do that for 3 or 4 games, but if it's one game and it gives your new coach a chance to get started, and he's not currently coaching a college team, then okay, go ahead with it. If it is a sitting head coach like a Lance Leipold, you know, or anybody who's currently coaching a team, you know, then clearly it's not going to happen until that guy's regular season is done and conference championship game if he's involved in that, and then you're looking at the weekend after Thanksgiving or even a week or so later if there's still games on the schedule.
Mitch, appreciate the time today, bud. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Chime in 402 888-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Mitch Sherman. That interview will be posted for you with the Hail Varsity podcast. The whole show on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and then different interview segments as well. You can just go do your dollar menu, right? You just pick a specific item. Some input here on the StreamYard. Jeff says, what's up? He says, happy to know that Whip and Mickey have talked. That's a good thing. Joe chimes in, says, good afternoon, guys. I hope Trev's doing his homework on the coaching search. They have to get this right. I'm tired of watching 3-9 football teams. Great show. Appreciate you listening, Joe. That's just it. We're talking about the team morale. They're the ones out there sweating and bleeding and getting punched in the face and throwing some punches back. Fan base. Yeah, I mean, I know we talked a little bit here about 25 years ago today, the flea kicker with Davison and Shevin and Scott and getting out of Columbia with a win. I didn't think I'd see 3-9. Maybe that's just me. I didn't think I'd see 3-9 once. I didn't think I'd see 3-9 2 years in a row. 4-8s weren't great. COVID year was screwy. 5-7, very disappointing. But Mitch framed it perfectly. Kind of the beginning and end of the era and that tab that is due. Because you're depleted, you're not developed. And here's the other question. God forbid. But as Whip said, when it rains, it pours. What happens if you just got to live Saturday with Pretty? I mean, can you put a game plan together for him and coach him up this week where he'll be successful? I mean, can you go double tied? Can you roll him out? Can you have him dip and dunk some passes? I mean,
I personally, I'd rather see Logan Smithers running the air raid. That's where I'm coming from.
I'm saying if for some reason Logan's not available.
Well, that could get back to the point of why they don't trust him to throw the football. Is there some sort of injury concern there? That I guess crossed my mind on Saturday. Whenever everyone and their mother could see that Chubba Purdy was not getting it done through the air, I kept on going, why are they not turning the ball over to Smothers? Sure, but is there potentially some sort of injury concern there? That's something to wonder about, but don't you think they'd update us on that? Maybe.
I'd say nothing. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hey, is Logan healthy? He's out there practicing. But great. Is Logan throwing the football? Is he capable and able to throw the football? How's his arm? I mean, that's a hell of a lot more explainable, isn't it?
It is.
Isn't it?
It would make more sense, looking back in hindsight, it would make a lot more sense why you don't pull the plug on Purdy against Illinois, why Smothers comes in for one drive against Illinois and then gets
See how you feel?
Yes. And then at halftime, the coaches and him talking, they go, you know what, something's not right here. Let's go look in Chubba's eyes and see if he's got it today.
Uh-huh. Yep. Right. And, well, Pretty didn't practice for 2 of the final days. I mean, if Pretty had been dinged, which he was going into Illinois, Casey gets rocked against Illinois, and then maybe the reason Smothers hasn't been going is because he's not 100%.
Maybe that's a reason why the guy, as Mickey said earlier today, isn't performing well in practice. Maybe he's still getting his recovery days from trying to play in a football game with an injury. And we're just throwing stuff at a wall here. We're speculating.
Because there's a lot of arrows that have been shot. Who's your 4th-team quarterback? Who's your 5th-team quarterback? Not good. Let's talk Husker hoops for a moment. We'll have more from Mickey here after our sit-down with Matt Schick. So last night, Huskers get it done, 79-66. How prophetic was Coach Smith with us yesterday? Very. When it comes to moments in a ball game, it's just game one and it's against Maine. That doesn't sound very uplifting, but you're just being real here. Where you have a guy like Sam Griesel, and he is able to take over and right the ship when it's a 1-point game. He came out of the locker room up 12. Maine goes Steph Curry on you from 3, and it's a 1-point ball game, and you get the combo of Griesel and Gary scoring the majority of points. You have a takeover guy, as Coach alluded to. You have a guy that can sense the moment, step up, get to the free throw line, find others. And then the other thing, Tominaga was fantastic. Hit all 3 of his threes, 7 of 12, 19 off the bench, scored 10 points straight at one point. And you need that type of offense.
And to add to that with Tominaga, not to cut you off here.
No, go for it.
Just a quick point. I think I only remember one poor shot from Tominaga
shot selection.
Where I went, man, what the hell are you doing shooting that? I think I remember one in the first half. That's
his confidence after international ball this summer's sky high. What we don't know is, can Griesel go an MJ translate into Big Ten play, and how many? What's the plus minus going to look like in Big Ten play with the more minutes you play Tominaga? Because he gets abused defensively.
Well, can you pair him with a guy like Bandamel? I was really impressed. Another thing Coach Smith said yesterday that seemed prophetic was Bandamel's on-ball defense really did impress me last night. The fact that you had a guy you could turn to whenever you needed to stop, you know what? Stick him on ball and let him pester a guy.
Just in his hip pocket.
In his hip pocket, the guy can't get free. You got to pass the ball if you want to get a free look. You got to run through some screens because you're not going to get past this guy one-on-one whenever you have the ball. I was impressed with what Bandamel can do. And again, as you say, not to be too, condescending, it is Maine.
I feel like I'm condescending when I'm just...
It's slightly condescending to say it's just Maine, but also, on the other hand, this is a Husker basketball team with a lot of new pieces that still has a lot of gelling to do. And to go get a win against Maine whenever, in the second half, things got dicey. Mm-hmm. Now, I think you've seen previous Husker basketball teams, even under Fred Hoiberg, I don't want to say pack it in, but start playing tight, start playing nervous, start, as you said, ignoring the Fred Hoiberg offense, starting trying to take things into their own hands. You didn't see that last night. You saw guys that were cool, calm, and collected, at least from what I saw, whenever the going got tough against Maine. And you're able to pull out a win. I think that's a big positive while you're still trying to gel as a team.
I'll say this. Nebraska, there's a lot of teams, even though college basketball dropped last night, that didn't look ready. Oklahoma got knocked off. Creighton was supposed to annihilate, and Creighton's damn good. I mean, they're going to be fine. But for Nebraska, this is a game that they've lost under Fred. They've lost under Tim. Mm-hmm. And the point is you have that personality, at least in the locker room. You have that guy that's confident and can bring others with him. Again, it needs to be showed in Big Ten play or Power 5. We'll wind down Hour 1 at Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good to hang out on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. So Michigan, Nebraska, set for Saturday. We'll spend time on that and the college football playoff reveal with Matt Schick here of Schick and Nick in about 10 minutes or so. Schick will join us. Then Travis Vokolek will sit down with us, get his take on the task at hand Saturday, and also how they can get the tight end a little more involved, man. You got a good one that does an amazing job blocking at a big game against the Illini. I know they targeted him in the end zone against Minnesota. Kind of a sea of hands type pass that was deflected a couple of different times, but Vokolek will be big, flipping it around. Harbaugh runs 3 tight ends, and they just wear you out. He had a tight end offense that was just beastful when he was at Stanford, right? And he loves 3 tight end sets, and they giddy up, man. They just maul you. So Saturday will be interesting. Road show for us Friday. Want to see you at the Hale Varsity Club. We're there 4 to 6. Come by, say hi, get a drink, get a burger, or some of that bang bang sauce with the pretzel. That's incredible. And then we'll be there noon to 2 for a pregame show with Hale Varsity on Saturday. A little watch party going on. 2:30 kickoff against Michigan. Reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes in mind. Straight ahead, the driver has one job. That's to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Do we have time to sneak in a phone call?
It's Pete.
Pete, what's good word?
Hey, how you doing?
We're good, man. What do you know?
As far as the coach search, I wouldn't mind Mickey Joseph. I'd like to know if Whipple is kind of in control there of the offense and telling Mickey what to do, or is Mickey going to put his foot down and do what he wants to do? I think that's very, very important. But is Urban Meyer totally off the list? I know he's made some gaps, but that guy can build a program. And I guess I wouldn't totally be opposed to Urban Meyer. I think he would.
Pete, let me ask you this. Let me just interrupt real quick. Do you look at Florida and Ohio State as building or inheriting? I'll give him credit for Utah, then handing that off to Winningham. But do you look at Ohio State and Florida as building or inheriting?
Well, when he took over, they weren't the best programs at that point in time. I think he built them into a powerhouse. They used to be a powerhouse, I grant it, but when he took those 2 programs over, they were not in the greatest of condition.
They were underutilized with Zucker, okay, and they were in transition under Fickle.
And I'll just counterpoint and say 7-5 or 8-4 is a hell of a lot different than 3-9.
But Urban Meyer is one heck of a recruiter, and he takes control of every little thing in the program. He has his hands on everything. If we want to get this straightened out, I think we're going to have that kind of mentality as a coach.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, Urban's probably the best hire out there if you can take it. Pete, thanks for the phone call.
Speaking of hands-on, Coach, fun story here. A guy who worked for the Panthers social media said that Matt Rule actually in his contract had the right to verify and approve all social media posts while he was the head coach. He's a very hands-on guy as well.
That works.
Oh, it made all their social media people very angry.
Matt Schick, Schick and Nick, and ESPN Radio next. Hour 2 on the way with Hale Varsity.
Welcome to Hale Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hale Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hale Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. We say hi to ESPN's Matt Schick, Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Schick and Nick podcast. So are you dealing or are you giving up bombs as we talk wiffle ball before we get into some college football?
Well, so the kids had off from school today. I think all of America had school today because every election is the most important election in the history of elections. And so they're until the next one, right? And so they're home, and we're playing a little wiffle ball. I'm the all-time pitcher, which means I get blamed for every pop-up. That's the difference. I get blamed for every foul ball, every ball that's not a home run. It's my fault, pitcher's fault for not giving a good pitch. So really, it's like all-time quarterback, right? Oh, you didn't give me a good pass. So fathers are used to getting blamed by both wives and kids, all-encompassing.
Now, Matt, I'm not sure if you know this, but there's a pro wiffle ball league in this country, and some of those pitchers are insane with what they can throw, knuckle curves, drops, sliders. It's unreal. I want to ask, what does your pitching repertoire look like?
Well, right now I'm strictly going underhand fastballs because I tried to show off my dad man strength as a Little League baseball coach and chuck a ball really hard. And granted, I'm a very good, a baseball player for a dad, who's coaching his kids, especially when compared to 12-year-olds. And I did that one time and really hurt something in my shoulder. So that's my excuse for not throwing hard to them, for throwing underhand, and for, frankly, not working out, not using dumbbells, free weights, or push-ups.
It's the old DL. We've got to discuss. Matt Schick is with us. We'll get you a cortisone. Okay, crazy, weird, hypothetical question, but Matt Schick just won the lottery, took home $1.9 billion. Half of that's gone. And you build a time machine. Let's keep the hypothetical going. What's the first sporting event you go to?
Wow. Any sporting event ever. I would probably go, as a Mets fan growing up,
Okay.
Game 6, 86.
Okay.
Game 6, 86.
Okay.
I would say, I'm a Bills fan. I'm a Bills fan as well. But why would I want to go see Wide Right or the loss to Washington or two losses back to back? What I would do? I'd go back in time and make sure Thurman Thomas had his helmet in his Super Bowl, so he could actually start that game, and maybe that game goes a little bit differently. There are a couple things I would do to maybe impact the outcome of a game, but in terms of just watching and not having an impact, it's got to be Game 686.
That's so memorable, and hey, it worked out for Mets fans and poor old Buckner, College. Go ahead,
Schmidty. You're down 2 runs.
No, I know.
Nobody kids should go back and just watch the last inning, 9th and 10th inning of that one. Just watch it and just see what happens there, where you're down 2 runs, nobody on, and 2 outs, and you somehow score 2 runs to tie and then 3 to win. I mean, it's unbelievable.
The RBI baseball on YouTube is pretty good, where it just crazily syncs up from the original Nintendo RBI baseball, where the Mets are playing the Red Sox, and it's got Scully's call on it. I mean, word for word, it was a perfect glitch. Well, things are not super optimistic in Huskerland, Matt. We'll go to football here, and probably no Casey Thompson. Last time we talked to you, there was still some optimism. A lot of the fan base is interested to see what's next with Mickey or an outside hire. There was a lot of false smoke last Thursday with maybe an announcement. But you examine all the college football playoff teams. You go in depth. What do you think of this Michigan team? Not only Saturday, but in the big picture, are they a threat to win the whole thing?
Well, I think they're a threat to Ohio State.
Okay.
We do our power rankings on Sirius XM on Big Ten Radio, and for the first time this week, I put them above Ohio State because I think they've been the most consistent, but certainly the most healthy. They're not waiting for a Jackson Smith and Jigba to come back. And so, that's – hold on, I got a ghost runner dispute. What's the ghost runner dispute?
Whenever we get him out, it's just going to be 1 out.
No, that's all right. Just let him play. Or Beckett can be all-time offense. You see what happens here? It's like, so we're having this wiffle ball game. The daughter, who's 10 years old, she now has a piano lesson. So she's out of the game. So the more athletic son says, well, she was my teammate. Now I'm just going to be her and me. And we're going to have ghost runners. And it's like, the older son on the other team understands there's a lot of hijinks going on. So, there's a lot of confusion here on the wiffle ball diamond on my driveway in North Carolina. But I don't think there's any confusion as I make an Emmy Award-winning segue back to Michigan about just how good this team is. They can run the ball. They're good up front. You could make the argument they're better defensively than they were last year in some regards. Maybe not in the entire front seven, but they can turn the ball over. Blake Corum is one of the best running backs in the country. And I think they're better at wideout this year than last year. The question is J.J. McCarthy good enough to make a pass when he has to? And that really hasn't been the case yet. So that would be my only concern with them, but they're healthy. And I think in the lines of scrimmage, they'll give Ohio State a really good game. There's a difference, as you know, Schmidty, between making the playoff and winning it. It's one thing to maybe beat an Ohio State and then beat an Iowa or Wisconsin or Illinois in a Big Ten championship game. It's quite another to then have to beat maybe a Georgia and a TCU or whoever on back-to-back weeks. It's just a completely different scenario.
Well, Matt, one of the things I think is most impressive about Michigan is that whenever they're off their game, they still find a way to win, and sometimes even win handily. When I look back at the Indiana game, the Maryland game, they weren't playing their best football at that time yet. They still found a way to win those football games. I think that's the hallmark of a really good football team. And whenever I look at this Michigan football team, something that I think should be considered here is it almost seems like they're coming into their own as the Big Ten weather commences. We get to November, cold, windy. It almost feels like Michigan's better suited for this kind of weather than Ohio State is.
So to the point that you're making, if you were to give me Ohio State or Michigan and I had to make a pick, and the game was inside, like in Indianapolis or in a dome, I would take Ohio State. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to give me it's outside, it's in maybe uncertain conditions, Midwest, November, December weather, give me Michigan 8 days a week. They are just built for this. And so just a lot of inconsistencies with Ohio State that I think they're much better on paper than they are on the field, but I do think they are national championship caliber worthy. It's just a matter of putting it all together for two complete halves, and they just haven't done that yet.
So what you're saying, Matt, is that Nebraska fans should be hoping for 75 and sunny on Saturday? Yes. Make sure that the elements are not a factor. Make sure that Michigan, frankly, let's put it this way. If Michigan had played Northwestern in those conditions last week, I think Michigan wins that game by 4 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. For some reason, Ohio State was just unable to get it done on the ground. Sure, they averaged 4.5, 5 yards a carry, whatever it was, but they also needed a 40-yard run from their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, who they don't use in the run game enough, in my judgment. So I think Michigan's really good. What's the line, by the way? I haven't looked at the line yet.
Well, it's 28.5.
Okay. Boy, they really get you with that hook, don't they? They really get you with that hook. The hook gives you pause. Like, 28. Ooh, a half? Ooh. Not sure I could go there, but that number sounds about right.
It may jump another half, and I don't know what Farmer's worth, but one of Nebraska's starting safeties is suspended today. Had a DUI over the weekend, so they'll be down a man back there. Matt Schick with us a few minutes. Hail Varsity Radio. He is all-time pitcher. It is wiffle ball out in North Carolina with Schick. Schick and Nick show, of course, on Hurrdat, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. If you don't, catch their podcast. But you hear Matt with ESPN Radio, Sirius XM, and you watch him on ESPN as well. So with Nebraska, let's flip it over to what they've been unwilling to do or not confident in doing, and that's lean on the run. They've not been good at it either, so that might be part of the problem. But the quarterback choice is Chubba Purdy, who's a Florida State transfer that's been a bit of a mess in a few samples. And then you have Logan Smothers, the Alabama kid, that is more of a gamer but may not show it in practice. But you've had 2 second halves the last 2 weeks, Matt, where Nebraska's been hesitant to go with Smothers, but he seemed to have moved the ball better. It was not good either way offensively, second half against Illinois, second half against Minnesota. But I hope there's some clarity between Mickey and Whipple here, even though it is Michigan.
Yeah, they're giving the impression, at least I feel like there's more post-game clarity between the two than in-game clarity.
Yes.
Maybe they're trying to get their story straight after the game to make sure they go to the podium as a unified front. Hey, guys, we're auditioning for this job. We can't sound like morons and one person saying one thing and the other saying the other. It's just, when you have a quarterback injury like they've had with Casey Thompson, I think the most frustrating part as a Nebraska fan is seeing that the gap is so great. And when you think about the difference between Nebraska and other programs, it's that the gaps between the ones and the twos are so sizable where you just can't build that depth. Look at Michigan. I mean, Michigan decides to bench Cade McNamara for a quarterback. They benched Cade McNamara, a guy that took them to to the playoff, beat Ohio State, won a Big Ten championship, and they move on from that. And you look at the other side with Nebraska, and they're just trying to scrape by with smoke and mirrors and mercenaries, and it's just, I think what this all magnifies is that there's just a lot of recruiting, retention, and development that needs to happen with whoever the next head coach is going to be. Chubba Purdy does not look prepared. I know he's been banged up, got banged up prior to the Illinois game, and I get all that. But you've got to put your quarterback in a great position to succeed. First half was great. Second half was not. And without Casey Thompson, it just looks like they're a rudderless ship right now. It's too bad.
Well, Matt, the way I see it, and this comes from my Broncos fan bias, I look back to whenever Tim Tebow took over the Broncos years ago. Kyle Orton was the guy. He wasn't winning football games. They brought in Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow was awful in practice. There's a whole bunch of videos out there of Tim Tebow trying to throw a football in practice, and it does not look good. But the simple fact of the matter is once Tim Tebow got on a football field on a Sunday, he went out and won football games. The team rallied around him. They were able to move the ball better, and they were able to create a game plan for a guy like that. And my question to you is Mark Whipple going to be willing to make a game plan for a guy like Logan Smothers, even though that's not what he likes to do on offense? Well,
I guess here's the counter to that, or I guess the question to that. And I agree with what you're saying. What can you do? Can you out-scheme when you're so severely out-talented? And so I understand the point of the question, because as Nebraska, you're just trying to get by. You're just trying to find a way to get yards, get in the red zone, get some field goals, get some points. But with Logan Smothers and the cast around him, can you do that? Can you do that? Can you give him enough protection in the offensive front? Can this offensive line hold up against one of the better defenses? You're talking about a top 10 defensive efficiency team in Michigan that makes life really, really hard on people. So, you know, if anything, Whipple can show some creativity that might need to throw in some gadgets. You're not going to beat Michigan straight up, regardless of how you scheme who your quarterback is or scheme around him. You're going to have to get lucky, and you're going to have to figure it out with maybe some hijinks, gadgets, and trick plays. That's really the only way Nebraska has a shot here. Maybe the dreaded onside kick, not the one from Dublin, but one that actually works. Maybe there's something there, but they're really up against it this week, regardless of who's there.
A few more minutes here. Matt Schick with us from Schick and Nick, and of course, Sirius XM ESPN Radio. Reminder about your friends at Red Zone Tickets, selling fun since 2001. And you have tickets you want to buy or sell: Husker football, Husker volleyball, NFL action, Creighton hoops, concerts, theaters, or the CWS. Come summertime, your place to go, RedZoneTickets.com. And they are local. They are Omaha proud, a local source, and an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. How do you get that? Well, you back up that 100% guarantee on all orders. You'll receive authentic tickets to the experiences and events you want to go to. Time to check off that bucket list. Create the memories that last a lifetime, and do so by visiting RedZoneTickets.com. Do so today, RedZoneTickets.com. Wisconsin's around the corner. Of course, Iowa to end the year. Ann Arbor in the crosshairs this weekend. And, of course, Creighton's going to have a pretty money schedule coming up here with Big East play. And maybe you're not a season ticket holder. Maybe it's time to make a phone call. Maybe you can't go, but listen, you want to get made whole or get something out of those seats. RedZoneTickets.com. Our old boy Brennan. Don't know if he got a deer last weekend, but he just wanted to remind you, Elijah, that Tim Tebow's a better passer than he is a tight end.
That's a low bar. It's a very low bar.
I just remember the playoff win back in 2009.
Tebow to Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, that's right.
80 yards for the touchdown.
Touchdown it is. More with Matt Schick on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Matt Schick with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Let's talk Trev Alberts and his outlook. You know, Mickey's, the context is so important because of what's been inherited, the mess, the transition. You've highlighted Nebraska's ills and that is retention, development, and then just talent acquisition over years. And there's been some tough ball games, and it's not been squeaky or flawless, but at the same time, we've gone over the Nebraska job, and is $2 million more a year or maybe $3 million more a year worth the headache? Let's get into the quick discussion of Mickey or the field, and whoever the field is. I just don't know that Trev's gotten a yes, Matt. That's kind of my feel right now, and Mickey could grow into this if and it's bad to even put it this way, but if Mickey's your alternative option, I think there could be some good things. But right now, I just don't know that the Nebraska job's that desirable, even for guys that are at some programs that don't have as blue a blood. Man, they're winning, and I'm talking about the state to the south of us.
No, I agree with your with the setup to the question there and the statement of, I've made the comment that Nebraska is certainly not selecting a coach; they're recruiting a coach, which is why Trev Alberts is the perfect guy for this job in this setting. I mean, let's be honest. If Sean Eichhorst is the AD right now, what prayer do you have of even convincing a guy to come work for you and in this program right now? Trev Alberts is the man of the hour, and he wins over a room. Can he win over a Power 5 coach who's at a place with lesser resources? And that's really what it is. It's not, you're not going to convince a guy for an extra $1 million or $2 million a year, in my estimation, to make a move that's seemingly lateral where your ceiling is about the same. And frankly, if you're pursuing a coach like that, I would imagine that school would counter whatever you bring. Like a Dave Aranda, from everything you hear, Baylor's going to do whatever it takes to keep him there. So I would almost scratch him off the list. You look at a Lance Leipold, the ceiling is certainly higher at Nebraska. The income will be greater. But, at his stage, is that something that he wants to take on? He's got a lifetime deal at Kansas if he wants it, based on what he did. And we've seen what happens if you don't succeed in 4 years at Nebraska, and what does success look like. So, guys like the Matt Rule, the Leipold, like we mentioned, the Matt Campbells, the Bill O'Brien, which to me just doesn't really captivate anybody. I think Mickey gets a serious long look here, but I also think it's such a heavy lift that you need someone who's more than just a great recruiter. You need someone who's a program builder and has a track record of doing so. And that's why, as soon as Matt Rule got fired here down the street from me, about 10 miles down the road from where I live in Charlotte, he immediately moved to the top of my list just because of that. And so how badly does he want it? How much can you pay him? And how much does he love college football? And how much does he love the grind? And how dirty does he want to get that smock? Those are all the questions that they're going to have to figure out. I tell you, Nebraska could really sell a lot of good Husker smocks if Matt Rule came to Lincoln, Nebraska. It would be very trendy, especially if they won more games than they lost.
Matt Schick's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Matt, the new name that's emerged within the past couple days, Jeff Monken from Army. Is it time to bring back the triple option?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Jeff Monken, because when Scott Frost was first fired and the story started coming out, I was texting a buddy in the media, and I said, if you want to hire the disorganized guy, you hire Jeff Monken. If you want to fire the disorganized guy, you hire Jeff Monken. You hire the organized guy. Who's more organized than the head coach at Army, who makes sure that the clothes are laid out neatly, let alone making sure you don't get any false starts. So that to me, it makes sense in that regard. But, yeah, what kind of offense are you going to bring? Do we really go back to the throwback? And would he bring portions of the triple option and not the entire system? That makes me always intrigued about a guy like a Dave Clawson. What's the upward mobility at Wake Forest? He's done a great job. His offense is really interesting and I think would work well at Nebraska. And he's a guy who's built a program as well. But you want a guy who brings respect back to the coach's office, someone like Mickey Joseph has done so far, but someone who also has a proven track record of program building, maybe an offense that has proven that it works, and one that, can work even without 4- and 5-star talent. And I think that's going to be really important.
Matt Schick with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Last thought, Matt, as we look towards a fun November of college football. Your reaction to LSU and Bama. Man, the 2-point call, the 2-point get, and then the eruption down on the Bayou.
It was probably the moment of the year in college football, and it's going to be hard to imagine that it gets topped. And I think, if anything, it shows that, Nebraska doesn't have the talent of an LSU. But if you get a good coach, it shouldn't be that hard, no matter where you are. And Brian Kelly he can speak in whatever accent he wants after that game and that call. And even if the call didn't work, sure, you're not throwing a party, but you like the Cajun cojones that he showed. And the fact that he's, going for the win. I think LSU is going to be interesting to see where they're ranked tonight. I think a 2-loss LSU, if they went out there unquestionably into the playoff. And I think they're probably 6th or 7th tonight. Does Tennessee drop out of the top 4? They're either 4 or 5. TCU's either 4 or 5. Tennessee's certainly not out of it yet by any stretch of the imagination. Frankly, I don't think Clemson is either. I see on Get Up, and I know I get paid by ESPN, but it's kind of foolish to say, their season's over. I mean, they're going to be 12-1 if they beat who they're favored to beat, which is everyone they're scheduled to play. And if they do that, they'll be sitting there 12-1, a conference champ, and waiting in the wings. So we've seen crazy things in college football. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be really fascinating to watch, and I think the gap between Georgia and the rest of college football is maybe as sizable as we anticipated coming into the year.
Matt Schick with us at ESPN_Schick. Matt, good to spend time with you. Thanks for taking a few minutes and go ice the arm.
Guys, the arm is really iced, and I apologize for the arguing. People are upset. There's a lot of the natives are restless. They're upset at my pitching. They don't like how I'm ruling on plays. It's like a head official while he's listening to the radio and trying to rule a game and pitch a game while it's going on. They're giving me a lot of grief, so I need to adjudicate some things here and check the Ring camera for instant replays.
I'll make the right call. You will. Take care, and thank you.
All right, guys.
Good stuff with Matt Schick of Schick and Nick at ESPN Radio, Sirius XM. And college football playoff ranking reveal here less than 30 minutes away. You know what I'm interested in? I'm interested in Georgia this weekend. They got to go down. They got to play the Pirate. They got to play Mississippi State. Just had the big win over TCU, or Tennessee, excuse me. But that's not a real easy turnaround emotionally. You know what I mean? To be up. Now, Georgia's fantastic. Georgia's got to go, I should say, down there, not Tennessee. But it's there's easier games to have, I guess, is what I'm saying. The old Pirate knocking off Georgia would be something.
Well, it's with his offense. With his offense,
the Bulldog versus the Bulldog.
Well, I think a big question for the game is what do Mike Leach's wide receivers look like if they don't have chairs on the sideline?
They're still running stairs right now, right? He called out their T-Rex arms a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and then he started folding chairs down like he's working security.
The Leach. He's his own guy.
Fish sandwiches and fat girlfriends. You got to love it. Running backs. Nebraska's at the they're in their third consecutive week of who wants to be all Big Ten, right? And Brown's really good. Moe's really good. Now you get Blake Corum, and he's phenomenal, and Harbaugh's already said it, but you had Coach Mickey today asked about Blake and how he spearheads that offense.
No, he's a really good player. He's probably one of the top backs in the country. I think he's getting Heisman votes right now. But if you watch the film, he runs low to the ground. He runs with violence, and then he has a really good burst. So when he sees it, and he busts through the hole. But he's a really good football player. So quarterbacks are the focus. Matt Schick laid out just what Michigan did. They benched
a guy got beat out in competition that took him to the playoff last year. What about Nebraska's quarterback competition? What's the criteria there?
Well, who's making the throws, who's getting us in the correct run plays, and they're competing right now. And we'll look at each practice and say, okay, he performed really good this day, he performed really good this day, and on Thursday we have to make a decision. So we'll just look at their reps.
So the game plan is what? Without divulging it, how do you stay alive for a while in Ann Arbor?
I think if you've been in this league and you understand what you're looking at as a coach, you understand that you got to slow it down because everybody else is slowing it down. Just the way this league is built, and we got to play Big Ten football, and we eventually trying to get to that. But we got to play Big Ten football, and you got to try to slow it down.
So tempo and time of possession, very key. Remember when Kaz said this to start the year. Time of possession and ground and pound is so key. And finally, what you need, what you want, what you got to be satisfied with the run game.
Well, we got to trust and be happy with 3 and 4 yard runs. You got to be happy with them. And so we got to say, hey, we got a 3 yard run. Let's pad it back up and go back at it again, and maybe we get another 3 yard run. Nice 3rd and 4 is manageable.
You can live that way. Manageable's good, but is it good enough Saturday against Michigan? No Miles Farmer. We'll spend some time here coming up. Travis Vokolek will sit down with us, captain, tight end, senior for Nebraska football. Big game against Illinois. Targeted a few times against Minnesota, but will need to be big. And you had kind of the dueling tight ends last year. Austin Allen did some nice things. That delayed tight end release that Michigan ran on 3rd and 8 all game, every 3rd down last year in their win. So we'll spend time. Travis Vokolek next to Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmidty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
A few minutes here. Travis Vokolek back with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Travis, some thoughts on Michigan as you guys regroup and head to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, we know that they're a great football team. Obviously, I have to have a great week of preparation. They're very fundamentally sound on the offense and defensive side of the ball, along with special teams. So we know what we have to get done this week in preparation, and then coming out on game day and executing.
Let's talk about the quarterback situation and what you see on the offensive side from any of the options that may play.
Yeah, we've got we got great players in that quarterback room. The whole offense and I guess the whole team really trust every single one of those guys, and we're going to be behind those guys no matter what happens, whether Chuba or Casey or Logan play. So we back those guys through thick and thin. Whoever Coach Mickey decides to play, the offense and the whole team's going to back up.
Travis Vokolek sitting down with us here at Hail Varsity ahead of Nebraska and Michigan. And it's been a bit of a merry-go-round with the quarterback. You've seen both. And let's talk about your comfort level with either. How much time have you had a chance to prep with them?
Yeah, throughout fall camp, way back in the summer, it seems like it was just yesterday, which is kind of crazy. But, you go through different rotations with the quarterbacks, so you get the comfort with them, how they throw the ball, their cadences and stuff like that. So I'm really comfortable with all of them. I trust every single one of them. I know that every one in that room can get the job done. So it's just about executing, and we're excited to see who's playing this weekend.
Early on against Minnesota, it was some really heavy sets, some double tight sets, especially that first drive. And talk to me about the run game mentality here moving forward for this team.
Yeah, we want to run the ball. We've got great running backs. The O-line has done a great job this past week, and we'll continue to do a great job. We're just we're preaching, physicality, attacking blocks, and I really think that we can run the ball very well. We got quarterbacks that know the offense in and out, so that they know when we need to throw the ball and when we need to run it. So being able to run the ball is a huge part of the offense, and I think we'll continue to do that.
A couple weeks back, the sideline grab and then the touchdown finish. Take me through that play against the Illini.
Yeah, it was awesome. Casey threw a great ball, just made a catch, and then tried to make a play to help this team win. So we need more plays like that, from our tight end room and from our receivers and running backs and everyone on the offense. So, if we can do that, multiple times this weekend, I think we'll like the outcome.
One of the plays that you're highlighted in is that pop pass, and you've caught a few of those, but just from a schematic standpoint, what does that do from your eyes? Why does it work so well against defenses? Yeah,
with that formation, we've got the middle linebackers, quarterbacks can the middle linebackers, and we got a play fake on it, so we're acting like we're running the ball. If they bite on the run, then we're going to throw the pop pass. If not, then Casey or the other quarterbacks is going to hand it off to the running back. So it's, my dad, as a defensive guy, always talks about how the tight end formations and all the different ways that tight ends can line up can really screw with the defense. So, we've tried to use a couple of those formations and mess with defenses, and that was one example of how it worked.
Travis Vokolek joining us here. Thoughts on Michigan, thoughts on Harbaugh. He's a guy that has been fantastic. You look at his tight end room all the way back to Stanford and then with the Niners, and 3 tight ends to just go crush folks at Michigan. So it's a position he uses real well, but just the big picture here with the opportunity at hand Saturday.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and everyone knows that. We know it's all about preparation right now. It's Tuesday right now. We've got a long week ahead of us. We need to have great practices. We just had a great practice this morning. We're setting the game plan together, and we really like the game plan. So it's a great opportunity. Going to be a great atmosphere. The big house. I've played there before. It's a sweet atmosphere. So guys are excited. Guys, I think we're going to be ready to go, and we just got to have a great week of preparation and then come out and execute the game plan on Saturday.
You don't worry about morale at all?
No. The thing is, this team, we're fighters, and I think we've proved that. We're not going to give up, and I can tell you right now, there's no sense of giving up in that locker room right now. Guys want to win football games. The work ethic and the fight is there. Unfortunately, just the execution and the results haven't been there right now. But I think eventually it's going to happen. So, we're excited. It's a great opportunity, and I can't wait for Saturday.
Last thought here, Travis Vokolek back with us here on Hail Varsity. Mickey touched on the topic of complimentary football, and it's been talked about playing 60 minutes. And what's the offense going to need to do to help the defense and vice versa? Because there's been games this year where all 3 phases have been complementary, and there's been some games that's not been the case.
Yeah, the offense is going to have to play very well. We've been preaching execution, kind of like what I've been saying before. We just have to get the ball to our playmakers, and when the opportunity comes, we have to make plays. Coach Whip and Coach Mick really preached that on Sunday when we came up here for meetings that, we had too many drops on 3rd down, and that's from all of us. We really need to, execute, and when the opportunity comes, we have to make the play, and we have to do it over and over and over and over. So we need to score touchdowns. Love our kicker, love Timmy, but we need to score. We don't want field goals. So when the opportunity arises, we just have to execute, and I think we'll like the outcome if that happens.
What's the tone of a Whipple meeting?
Oh, it's, I love Coach Whipple. He can definitely coach you really hard. He can get on your rear end a little bit, but at the end of the day, he cares about his players. He cares about this football team, and he just wants to see us be successful. So he's put us in great situations all year, and us as players just have to execute when that opportunity comes.
Is it tone? Is it volume, the tenor, the way the message is being delivered? What sticks out to you about that?
It's, there's times where, he's loud and he'll get onto the quarterback, he'll get onto, me, he'll get onto other tight ends, and he'll scream at you. But, growing up in a football family, it's what they're saying, not how they're saying it. That's something my dad's always preached to me. So, we always take the message from Coach Whip, and, I'm really glad that, he's our OC, and I love playing for him.
Both your quarterbacks, what do you like about Purdy most? What do you like about Logan most?
Oof, man, they're great athletes, great leaders. I can't say I like one more than the other, So
no, you need whoever's there to throw the ball to you.
Yeah, whoever wants to throw me the ball. No, they're great dudes. They can make plays and they can get things done. So, whoever's going to play is going to be our best option to get us a win in Ann Arbor.
Travis, thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good to sit down with Travis Vokolek, senior captain, tight end for Nebraska, and he had a nice day against the Illini. Let's see if Nebraska can get back to that against a team like Michigan. That old pop pass, though, man, it's been pretty lethal, and no doubt Michigan's ready for it. We'll wind down a Tuesday with Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity, presented by Nebraska and your friends at Currency for your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. That was almost a swear jar moment. But it wasn't. Elijah, what do the polls say, my friend? It is election day, and we put a poll out yesterday. I did a garbage job of promoting it, but we have a few votes in, which is fine. And it was a full ballot, wasn't it?
It was.
So run down the list of who was on the ballot, and you, the Hail Varsity Radio fan, voted in and said what?
Well, we had somewhat of an A tier and a B tier. So the A tier, the top list, Mickey Joseph, Dave Aranda, Matt Rule, Lance Leipold. As for the B tier, we had Gary Patterson, Bill O'Brien, Chris Kleiman, and Jeff Monken. So
it's a good B tier.
It's a very good B tier, but this is just the feel I've gotten from fans over the past couple weeks of who people want. And in the A tier, with 33% of the vote, Mickey Joseph take it. But it was close all the way through. Dave Aranda, 26% of the vote. Matt Rule, 25% of the vote. Lance Leipold, 16% of the vote among that A tier. Down in the B tier, Bill O'Brien won the B tier as he had 37% of the B tier, beating out Chris Kleiman with 30% of the vote, Jeff Monken with 18% of the vote, and Gary Patterson with 14% of the vote. So that's what we're looking at. It's Mickey Joseph still is the popular name, but if we're looking at straw polls and what the Gallup calls are saying, Mickey Joseph, I think, has come a little bit more back down to earth from where he was a couple weeks ago. I would venture to say, based on what I saw from other people's polls and just from the feel I got from social media, what my friends say, what just other people text me and say, I think Mickey was probably closer to 50 to 55% of the A tier as of a couple weeks ago. Now he's come back down to earth, sitting at 33%. So
here's a couple of names, okay, that are going to pick up steam here in the next couple of days. Gary Patterson, Bronco Mendenhall.
That's an interesting one.
Yep.
Yeah, sources?
Yeah, I do.
Sources are saying?
Yeah, and let the arrows fly at me, but just got a text, and the question is this: you here at Mendenhall or Patterson? Like, brother, it's quiet. It is quiet. But, no, I mean, Gary Patterson, look, TCU's killing it this year. That's his roster. And the question is, how would the current locker room react to Gary Patterson? Hell of a defensive coach. 62. Is he a bridge guy? I mean, he built and built. I mean, TCU was decent when they had LaDainian Tomlinson for a year in 2000. That's when Patterson came in 2001. And he's, to be quite honest, he's like one of the guys that Bill Byrne wanted to replace Coach Osborne. All right, back at 4 tomorrow with Hail Varsity. Dr. Rob Zadiska joins us, Mike Babcock, Evan Bland.